All right, today on the Titan Leader Talks, we have Coach Keys. He is the head coach at the University of Findlay. Thanks for being here with us, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach, we're going to turn it over to you and go ahead and hit your Win the Day presentation.
Sounds good. Good morning to everyone. I know in these odd times, we've learned to adapt and adjust like every coach should. But today we're going to talk about some of the concepts and beliefs here at the university that myself and the staff have been able to put together. I know at the top of the title it says Win the Day. It's funny. Every team has a motto or catchphrase or a slogan, whether it's season to season or throughout your time there. The Win the Day has never changed for us. And if you talk to our players, they know exactly what it means. It's not just three words. It truly is a way of life here. And they understand what it is to win a day, not only as a player, but as a person. And it's funny, when you start as a freshman, freshmen have a mindset of this is what it looks like to win a day. But then as they move through the program, they realize that their standard wasn't high enough. And when they're fifth-year seniors and moving on into life, they understand that it takes a little more to win a day here at the university. So I kind of get into it, what we're going to talk about, some of the things we talk about, the basics. These are so common, but it really goes back to the foundation. And these basics, this is what the program's been built on. And we really believe in this. And our players get to see this every single season, and they see it multiple times because I always want to go back to the foundation and the staff as well. Don't complain. That's a big thing. Produce what you have. I know when I first got here in 2011, we inherited a program that was 1-10. Things weren't great. We didn't have a lot of good players. We had a grass practice field. I would call it more a dirt practice field. A lot of issues. And that's the first thing I think the staff pointed out, all the things that were wrong. And I kind of flipped it. We talked about things that were right. And we looked at all the things that we had, but at the same time, we didn't use any of those things as an excuse. And you can't. It starts at the top down. If I complain about anything, it's going to trickle. And it's going to go down to the coaches, and it's going to go down to the players. So I do my best to understand that I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity to get a team ready to play a game and win. And I can't look at the things that we don't have, because as soon as you start to look at that, you start to make excuses. And that's one thing we don't have here. Believe in the blueprint. We do have a strong foundation. One of those foundations is we run the football. And that's what we believe that helps win games. It wears opponents down. It's very reliable when you can win up front and run the football consistently. But you have to be able to adjust and adapt. I know in 2011 and 12, we were a multiple 10 personnel and 20 personnel team, but still ran the ball. But then if you looked at us in 2017, we made that playoff run and ended up, going into the quarterfinals. We were a two-back tight end offense, 21 personnel running power and counter. The foundation of running the ball never changed, but we adjusted and adapted to the personnel we had. We had a very good tight end. We had a strong fullback, and we were able to run the ball in different ways. So I think your players have to believe in what you believe in, but at the same time, you can't fit square pegs in round holes. You can't just continue to do things just because that's what you did. You do need to adjust and adapt. You got to outwork your opponent. I know it says the basics. It's about as common as it gets. My dad was a high school football coach. I've been coached from day one. I've been around the sidelines since I could probably walk. And, it's amazing that if you want to win and you want to be great, you got to outwork your opponent. And if you want results, you got to do more. And our players understand that the standard's high. The expectations are to win every single game. And to have an opportunity to do that, you better be willing to work. I know that we're always looking for fit guys in our program. I know guys that don't fit in our program are guys that are lazy, the guys that don't like to work. So it's our foundation is work ethic. And there's no doubt that if we want to win, we got to outwork our opponents. Some other basics that we talk about, your work ethic and effort. We just talked about that. Those are the controllables. It doesn't matter how good, how bad, how big, how fast, how whatever, you still have the ability to show up every day with the work ethic and effort and have that a relentless attack. And that's in every aspect. And we keep talking to our guys, whether it's, our best player on a team or we have 120 players, whether it's 1 or 120, they still have the ability to bring that work ethic to the table. And it's infectious. It's amazing when your best players work really, really hard. Everything seems to go in line. We've been very fortunate to have that here. Accept your role. You got to be accountable to the team and do your job. And if you don't like your role, you have an opportunity to change it. I go back, when I was a player, it's going way back now, but in 1991, at West Virginia as a player, I accepted my role as a scout team player, and I did my best to get the team ready to play on Saturdays. And I accepted that role. I didn't like it, but at the same time, that was my role, and I realized, hey, that's where I fit at this point. But in the meantime, I'm going to do everything possible to get out of that role. I want to get on the field. I want to play on Saturdays. I want to become a starter. So, our guys understand that once you're put into a situation that you're helping us win games and help us move this program forward, you don't have to remain there. And everybody's got the opportunity. It's equal opportunity for everybody across the board. If you don't like where you're sitting on the depth chart or you don't like your playing time, do the best to move forward and get out of that role. And then, with us, our players see this and they know it. It's production over politics or potential. And I know it's hard sometimes, as college football coaches, I sit with a staff of 9 other guys that recruit players, and they have different relationships with them. And, man, I really wanted to play because I like this kid a little more. I know a little more about him. And, it does boil down to when we sit at this table, who's the most productive? And you got to answer that question. We want to put the people on the field that help us win and to do the job consistently. So it does boil down to the word production. And our guys on this team know it. And it's a double-edged sword. As a true freshman coming in, you have every opportunity to beat anyone out. But, that's great when you're a freshman. But understand when you're a fourth-year senior or a fifth-year senior, you have the ability to lose your job. So those are some of the basics. I had this up here. This is some of the stuff we talked to our staff, but I want our players to see that. This is our staff in 2019. And it just showed all the guys that in their roles and the years they coached. And when you look at that, we spun it as a positive. We wanted our players to see that there's 171 seasons of college football coaching at your disposal. That's a great experience. And I know if you look back, and I know there's some great staffs listening right now, I think your players need to know a little bit more about you, and I think this allows them to say, these guys know what they're talking about. They've gone through a lot, and I want our guys to see that. And I also want to see, we have a first-year guy. This is first year coaching, and I want the staff to – I want the players to see that the staff, has the ability to move this team forward. As we go forward in this, we as coaches, this is some of the stuff that our coaches hear every season to start the year in August, and they hear it again this spring, because I think they need to know what the expectations are, me included. And it's not just the assistants, it's me as well. I like hearing it again. But you need to be yourself. I know we get caught sometimes. I got my first full-time job in 1999. I was a graduate assistant, but I got my first full-time job in 99, and I tried to be like the head coach. I tried to act like the head coach, and it really some of the personalities fit, but some of them didn't. And I realized that I couldn't keep it up. It was too much of a facade, and I want our guys to be ourselves. I want each coach that comes in to be yourself, to understand that I hired you for a reason. Bring what you bring to the table. Continue to tweak your coaching styles, but don't try to be somebody else. I don't want guys in the office or young coaches to say, well, I'm going to coach like Coach Keys. If it doesn't work for you, try to find your style that fits best. Be committed to excellence. I don't want our guys to think other than, how great can this program be? How, can we move it to a national title level? I don't want guys with the mindset, hey, I want to come in. What can we do to be 500? I want guys to strive for excellence. During the heydays of the Raiders, you can, the commitment to excellence, you can see that across the the stadium there. And it kind of stuck. I know Coach Nealon at West Virginia used the committed to excellence quite a bit when I was a player there. Be positive. I know that kids have changed slightly. I wouldn't say that it's changed a ton, but I do see that you could throw the negative out there and you get after guys and coach them hard, but I definitely want to try to respond in a positive way as much as possible. And I want our guys to create a positive energy and an atmosphere so everybody feels like they're excited about being there. Be prepared, coaches and players. When you step onto the practice field, and if you're a coach and you aren't ready to do a certain drill or you're not set up to run a certain aspect of practice and it doesn't go off the way it should, and we waste time, it goes back to your preparation. And I really stress on the prep stuff. I prep, I talk at length to our players as well as our staff about you need to get yourself prepared in every aspect when you're going to take on a game or a test. You think about it, when you're prepared, everything's easy. You're relaxed, you focus. It comes so much, you think about that. When you study for a test, the material, like you're excited about taking that test. And it's because of your preparation. Be organized. Everybody has their own way of organization. I know people look at my desk and they would say you're not, but I have my own rhyme and reason to how I want things, and it works out. But in your own way, you need to be organized. Be accountable, to the staff, to the players, to the university, to your organization. You need to be accountable to it. Are you holding up your end of the bargain and every aspect to make your team as good as it possibly could be? Be a leader, and that's with words and action. I don't want guys saying one thing and then they turn around and they act a different way. I love the coach, hey, don't use that language on the field, and then they turn around and use the same language on the field. That's not true leadership. You need to be that mindset of what I need to do to serve others, and what can I do to help everything be better. And that's one of the things a leader does. Be focused, on the task and be able to adjust, be ethical. Our guys understand that there are rules in place for a reason. And if you win and you break a bunch of rules, you really didn't win. I love the programs that, won national championships, but they committed, 25 violations along the way. I mean, it's really hollow in my opinion. So I want our guys to be ethical, in the recruitment aspect while coaching our guys as well. And then the last one I tell our guys is be flexible. All my staff they all want to be head coaches someday. And I told them, I said, it's tough to sit in this seat when you haven't sat here and understand some of the things I might have to take into consideration before I make a decision. And there's times where you might not understand what I'm doing, but again, be flexible with it and let's move forward. So it is college coaching and high school coaching. It pulls you in a ton of different directions, especially at the small college level. And if you aren't flexible, you're not going to be able to make it. So those are some of the things we talk to as coaches. I kind of wrote this up here from a leadership perspective. I'm not going to read through it, but ultimately leadership from our players and leadership from our coaches is what's going to allow us to have success. If we want to win, we got to have great leadership. And I go back to it. The main leaders of this organization, this team, is the coaching staff. And I tell them, we're only going to go where we take them. Our players they fit the role of player. Their job is to execute on Saturdays, to execute the game plan, to execute and do some of the things we're leading them to do. But, I want them to lead as well. But ultimately, it's the coaching staff. It's me and the entire staff that is going to take the team where we want to go. And I want those guys to understand that we need to make sure that we're leading on every single opportunity, every single rep, every single action. We have a chance to educate, on the good and the bad that our players are doing, whether it's, something at practice or something off the field. So those are some of the things from a leadership perspective that our guys and our staff needs to see and our players get to see as well. When leading our players, these are some things kind of go over, have the answers. players see right through coaches that don't know what they're talking about. If I go onto the field and I'm working with the running backs and we're talking about, 64 and 65 pass protection, and they ask me a question, coach, who has that linebacker? If I can't answer it, well, my credibility's shot. So you as a coach, you better have the answers. You better know exactly what you're coaching and have the ability to have those answers when a player asks you. And that goes back to a staff perspective. The offense coordinator, Corey Allen on my staff, and the defense coordinator, Jason Macrinos on the staff, those guys, their job is to make sure the offense and defense are running, at a very high level and producing. And they better have the answers. When a player asks Coach Allen a question about the offense, he should know the answer. He's in charge of that offense, and no different with the defensive coach. So you got to have the answers when leading your players. If you try to, dance around questions and not know the material, you're going to have a tough time gaining that confidence in your players. Be a master of your craft. We're constant learners as coaches. It's funny amidst this pandemic and all this time kind of to ourselves, I've had the ability to maybe master my craft in a different way, a little more reading, a little more education from the fine points. And I'm trying to maybe do things. I'm not trying. I'm trying to do things better than I did a year ago and in 2011 and 12 and up through. I'm trying to be a better coach every single day. And I stress that to our coaches. If you're the defensive back coach, you need to get out there and talk to as many coaches as possible. How you're covering this, what's your man technique? Can you find 1 or 2 points that'll make you a little bit better in your craft? And our coaches are constantly pushed to become masters at what they're coaching. Develop a plan and teaching progression. You can't just go, hey, this is how we're going to do it. You got to lay it out. This is your step-by-step. This is, we're teaching man coverage. This is how we're going to teach it. Our terminology, our coaching points, our stance, our eye progression. You got to develop that plan, and you need to practice it. It's funny. I go back. I was a graduate assistant at WVU right after I played, and I was talking to our video coordinator, and he was like, "Are you ready to interview for a job?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." That confident attitude. He was like, "Okay, get on the board." He said, draw our number one front and coverage and talk me through it, the entire front and coverage. And I get up on the board and I start, I start my offensive formation and I start drawing and I drew the tackle in the wrong spot. And then I drew the outside linebacker in the wrong spot. And he was like, "You're wrong already." And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that I wasn't really ready to take on an interview. And at that point, he said, "You need to practice. You need to practice your plan and your teaching progression on a daily basis, because when you go in and you have your opportunity to engage with your players, you have to be the guy. And they look to you for all the answers." So I think it's one of those things as young coaches, you need to be out there and you need to practice it. Little things like being able to draw on the board. The first thing I look at if I have a guy coming in an interview, it's how they draw their circles and how they draw on the board. If you can't do that, then, I really feel that you haven't done a great job in developing your plan and teaching progression. Be fair and consistent. And that's obvious in every aspect. You got to be fair to every player. You need to be consistent. You can't say one thing to one player's actions and then turn around and say something different to another player's actions. For me, it's easy. The better the player, the better the talent, the harder I coach them. And that makes it easy. I look back, some of the best players that we've had over here at the University of Findlay in the last 11 years, I've been the hardest on. I don't let them, I don't give them an inch. And if you do that, it makes it a lot easier to coach the entire team. It's tough. And I've been a part of that. I've seen some coaches at times, and I've made mistakes at times where, maybe I don't want to offend this player. I don't want to get this player turned off. And I'm going to kind of overlook this. And ultimately, it's probably going to bite you in the end. So I really feel that that fair consistency, your players are going to gain. They're going to respect you a lot more for it. Having sincere interest in their life, and it's not phony. And guys know when it's phony. The hardest job that I have is to do that with every player. The one thing I miss as an assistant coach is I had a better relationship when I coached defensive backs with the defensive backs than anyone. We were very thick. They would do anything for me. I would do anything for them. But I knew them. I knew them on a personal level. As a head coach, that's my toughest job. Trying to get all 120 with that relationship is nearly impossible. But I do my best to work that on a daily basis. And I think the better I do that, the better this team's going to be. Gaining respect and confidence, it's pretty obvious how to do that, with the things we talked about above. And it's amazing. When they respect you and you respect them, and there's a confidence level that goes back and forth, you can accomplish a lot. Don't assume, be clear and concise. I coached a linebacker a couple years ago who was one of the leading tacklers in junior college. Came in, was a good player for us, ended up playing a lot of special teams, did not play a ton, but we go through spring practice. He was a mid-year transfer, and I was talking to him on the sideline. I think it was like practice 2, and I was like, you got to get B gap. You're missing B gap. That's why you're not making that play. You're the B gap defender. And he was brutally honest at times. He's like, Coach, I don't know what B gap is. And I was kind of blown away. I was like, you played junior college football. You were one of the leading tacklers last season in JC level, and you know what B gap is. And he really didn't. So, don't assume. Players don't maybe know, when you're coaching somebody, you know the information. And the last thing that you want to do is be a kind of assume what they know, because if you do, you're not going to get the point across. You're not going to get what you need. Put the team first and still is ideal. It's so true. If the mindset is team first and how can we move us forward instead of me forward, we accomplish a lot more. Be an example on and off the field. Our coaching staff are phenomenal men, both on and off the field, and that's very, very important to me. I want guys that are going to act a certain way when everybody's around, and then still act that same way when no one's around. And I think that the more quality people you have in your program, and the more you educate your players as well. I talk to them quite a bit. If I see something that I don't like, would you act that way in this situation? And they start to kind of think about, what they said or what they did. And they would probably say, well, no, I wouldn't, Coach. Well, I said, then it's not a good example. Let's think about how we can be different and how we can be better. And then this one is big for me. There's a standard set here at the University of Findlay. It's very, very high. Expectations on the field, win every game. Expectations in the classroom. It's funny in recruit talk. I always tell them, if you're a C student, I expect you. If you're an A student, I expect you to get A's. If you're a B student, I expect you to get A's. If you're a C student, I expect you to get A's. The standard's very high, and you got to tolerate nothing less. If you start to tolerate, it's okay to be a B. If it's okay, to lose by 2, then there's an issue. And I think myself and every coach understands that when we start anything, the standard is extremely high and the expectations are high, and we're going to strive towards that. We're not going to hit it every time, but we're not going to change our standard just to feel good. And it goes back to, with the New England Patriots, and I'm a big fan of Bill Belichick. I look what he's done over the years, how consistent. He goes back to doing those 3 words, do your job. Our players are a reflection of us. And you're allowed to happen one way, you're coaching it to happen another way. But, we want to impact our players in every aspect of life, and there are no exceptions. And it does boil down to those 3 words, do your job, over and over and over. And I think the more we do that, and the more mindset that is set that direction that, hey, my job is to make sure that this team moves forward as the head coach. As you go down from head coach to coordinators, offense coordinator, your job is to score every time you get the ball. Defense coordinator, your job is to make sure you stop every series, that there is no points against you. And that's how it kind of goes through. And all those jobs kind of work down to whether, okay, I'm the quarterback. My job at this point is to read this coverage and to throw the ball in this position. And it is a really simple game. It's a really simple aspect and really simple philosophy and mindset. But when you do that, you do it consistently, you produce results. Now that we talked about, kind of the culture and leadership and some of the things we do, this is one piece I think that's a lot of people don't talk about. And I think it's very important to me, but it's evaluation and design. You got to be a great evaluator as a coach. You got to be able to see things that other people don't see and develop players into things that you see and allow them, that big picture. But, the big thing with me is you got to see each player with an unbiased view. I know as high school coaches, you might have better relationships with certain parents, or this kid might be on the school board, or, hey, he was a star for us last year. But when you watch him perform and you strictly look at production through those lenses, for us, like I said, I recruit certain kids and I have different relationships with them because I like them as people. And it doesn't change, what I know them as a person, but if they're not making plays, they're not producing, I have to see that as well. I want our coaches to see each player in an unbiased view. Don't set limits on improvement. We start to see what a player is, and it's amazing. There's so many examples in my time there as a coach where I saw coaches set limits on players' improvements, and those players exceeded those limitations. And there's players in this that I've coached here. Harold Jones-Corte, a Columbus kid who played for the Chicago Bears, for 3 years, and then the Philadelphia Eagles, and ended up winning the Super Bowl. I mean, he was an average tackler when he got here. Little out of control, always wanted to knock guys out. Never really wanted to bring guys to the ground. And we started talking about changing positions due to the fact that he was, his tackling was not great. But we didn't want to set limits on that. We developed it, and we changed his production level, and he ended up being a very, very good player. It's amazing. I've seen guys as freshmen who you never thought would step on the field start as seniors. And that's one of the things I don't, it's personal. It's from really personal experience for me because I walked on at WVU. If I was coaching myself as a true freshman, and I would look at me, I'm like, wow, he stinks. He's got a long way to go. But at the same time, if I put limits or a ceiling on his improvement, I wouldn't have been able to achieve some of the things I did as a player. And I don't want any of our coaches to do that. Identify production and potential. You got to see what guys are doing, the job description that you've laid out for them consistently. That's production. But at the same time, you got to see guys that, okay, he has the potential to do this. How can we develop that potential and make it production? Identify strengths and weaknesses. I know that's pretty common. That's pretty obvious. But with those strengths and weaknesses, you got to be able to convey it to your players. It's one of the hardest things that we have to do as coaches because it does get personal. It's not personal to me, and it is, it's reality. But to players, they take it personal. When you identify their strengths, that's the easy one. Wow, they get their chest pump up. They feel good about themselves. But on the flip side, I tell them, this is what you do well. Here's what the things you don't do well. And those are the tough conversations you have to have with your players. You need to convey that info to them to where it's not demeaning. It allows them to take that constructive criticism and become the player they want to be. If you don't identify the weaknesses, they're never going to improve. So you got to have those frank conversations. And sometimes it's difficult, but every player is different. There are certain players I can sit right across the table and I can tell them point blank, this, and this, you stink. You have issues. You got to change. You got to do this to correct this. There are other players that, their personality is a little different. I might phrase it different, but I still get the same info conveyed to that player in a different aspect. So sometimes you can shoot straight at them. Sometimes, I'm not saying I'm going to dance around the subject, but I'm going to convey the info in a different way. But our players need to know what they need to improve upon. You need to design drills and situations to develop that. You have to allow their players to grow. And the only way you can allow them to grow is to put them in situations that allow them to develop. and then put players in the best positions to succeed. And I'm gonna kind of pull the next up too, is focus on the big picture and what's best for the team. These are some of the things and some of the decisions we make as coaches that allow us to take, maybe a 7-3 season and turn it into a 10-0 season. And the reason for that is, it's funny, going into the 2017 season, Dadasilla was one of our better defensive players. He was a outside linebacker safety from Ypsilanti, Michigan, and he was a leader on defense. And he was a great tackler. He was fast. He was physical. He was everything you wanted in a defensive player. But we looked at the team and we looked at the best situation for us to succeed. And we had a tough conversation because the defensive coaches didn't want to lose him. And in the spring before that 2017 season, when we made that playoff run, we moved him to tailback. Defensive coaches were not happy at first. My job as the head coach was to make them see the big picture. And when they saw the big picture and we started the 17th season and you looked at what allowed us to be the best team, him being the tailback allowed us to be the best team. And we won a lot more games. And it's one of those things that, we need to kind of see outside the box. We need to be creative. And we do that constantly with our players. And our players know that. We're going to do our best to get our best players in their best situations for them to succeed. I'm not going to try to ask players to do things they can't do. That's bad coaching. You put guys out there that, that maybe aren't great man-to-man coverage guys, but you call man-to-man coverage 90% of the time, you're probably going to get bad results. So we as coaches, we want to make sure that the evaluation is a big part of our process and seeing things from different lenses, trying to look at players in different light and look at possibly of what they can become as opposed to what they are and how we can develop them. So it's one of the things that I think's allowed us as a coaching staff. If somebody asked me, what separates University of Findlay from other programs, I would say I believe that we develop players past their potential, their full potential, better than other coaches. I really do. I've seen that. I look at Jason Moore, who's playing for the Los Angeles Chargers, who just finished his rookie season. As a high school senior, he had no offers, not one. He was a quarterback, and he played a little receiver, played a little safety. But I think as a staff, we saw things that other staffs didn't see, but we took his ground floor and we developed it. And I think that's one of the things that we do. And it's because of the way we evaluate and how we convey information to our players, the staff. So it's one of the things that I feel that this really helped us move forward in the program. A couple of things, that help us and the staff that we talk about. We want our players, the one thing we educate them on is learning how to win. Humility and victory is big to me. I do not tolerate and will not stand for a player who makes a play and then taunts the player at practice. Won't happen. So from day one, we talk about when we make good plays at practice, how we're supposed to respond to our successes. I'm not one of those guys. Number one, football is a great team game, and you didn't make that play alone. So you better look to the guys that helped you and allowed you to make those plays. It's really important to me. And then your perspective of success. As a freshman, you might see that, hey, winning by, 4 points in a game it was a good thing. And believe me, all winning is good, but, we could have done a lot better. We should have won by 4 touchdowns rather than 4 points. And where do we kind of fall short of hitting our benchmark and our standard? Understand too that at our place, it's constant competition. The one thing we implement at practice, we do a thing called call-outs. And at any time, we call out 2 players to go one-on-one, whether it's a pass route, receiver versus defensive back. It could be a one-on-one tackling situation. It could be a one-on-one pass rush with the offensive lineman versus the defensive lineman. But the game of football, you think about it, at some point in time, you're going to be called upon to make a play. And all the lights are going to be on you. So we try to ingrain that in our players. And it also keeps the readiness of our players at practice. If I feel that a player maybe is not kind of tuned in or locked in at practice, that's the first guy I'm calling out because it'll change his mindset immediately. So those are some of the things we talk about from a learning to win perspective. And then on the flip side, we learn our most from our failure and the things that we talk about. The first thing is self-evaluation. It goes back to us. What didn't I do? What I have done different? And then I make it kind of simple. If we lost the game, one or two things happen. We made mistakes during competition, and we try to figure out why we made those mistakes, or we made mistakes during preparation, and we figure out some of the things we could do better in prep. So, I do feel that, like I said, if I walk off the field after a loss, the first thing I'm thinking about is what didn't I do? And I'm hoping everybody in the organization, from every coach and every player, has that same mindset. And then reflect back on, okay, what didn't I do during those 60 minutes of that game? Or what didn't I do in the 6 days leading up to that Saturday? So it kind of makes it a little more simple thought process. And it does allow us to reflect on, okay, this is what I need to change to make sure that my results end up the way I want to in winning. The last thing, from a slide perspective, I know coaches want to know, hey, how do you win more games? I know for us, the stat that rings true to me, it's all about the ball. Turnover ratio, this is from 2011 to 2018. I haven't updated the 19 stats, but they really haven't changed. When we win the turnover battle, we're 91% win percentage. I would take that pretty much every season. If you can win 91% of your games, that's a high number. And I know that when we win the turnover battle, 42-4, you're pretty proud of that. If you're even on the turnover ratio, we're about 50%, just slightly over. And it's amazing when we don't win the turnover battle. When we lose the ball on offense or we don't get the ball on defense, we're at 21%. So ultimately, one thing that's stressed, and I would say it's stressed pre-practice, in the meetings, post-practice, during practice, it is all about the ball. Offense, every single play, handle the ball to the official. That's your job. Whether it's after a first down or after a touchdown or after every single play, our job as an offensive player is to handle the ball to the official and never give it away. And on defense, it used to be 3 and out. It's no longer 3 and out. It's if they have the ball, can I get the ball back from them on every single play? And the more we get takeaways and the better we do a job in not giving the ball away, the more wins we're going to have. And our goals of national championship are going to be achieved. And it's one of the things that we work very, very hard on here at the University of Findlay on a daily basis, 365. So, that's some of the things that I want to talk about. I know one thing that's kind of off the football topic that we implemented 7 years ago, and we continue. The first day of preseason camp, we hit these main topics that our players are educated on. They're 45-minute class sessions that allow our players to hear some of the things that allow them success off the field. We talk about classroom etiquette, what it is to be a college student. We talk about substance abuse, both drugs and alcohol. We talk about testing policies, etc. It's amazing. If a problem comes to my desk, 99% of the time, alcohol or drugs are involved. And we talk about if we can eliminate those, we're going to be better off as people. We talk about social media. If you decide to be a part of the University of Findlay, your social media is no longer just yours. It's ours. And it needs to reflect what we believe in here at the university. A tough topic, sexual assault, domestic violence. It's so prevalent in college sports, in professional sports. And I'm not one of those coaches that are going to sweep things under the rug and pray nothing happens. We're going to put it on the forefront, talk about it. And some of the things that our players, everybody wants to win, and our guys want to be great. And I think they go out there and they practice hard and they train hard, but they lose some of the key pieces on nutrition, hydration, and sleep, and how important those pieces are. So those are some of the things we give them in preseason camp leading up to any fall. So some of the things we kind of do more than just football and more than just academics. But those are some of the things we do here at the university. Again, we're constantly adapting and morphing. We're trying to tweak on a daily basis and on a yearly basis because our job is to get better every day. And we want to surround ourselves with people that make us better every day, that challenge us, that are honest with us, and, at the same time, trying to develop us to our absolute best. And I know that we're doing that from the top down here at the university on a daily basis. But I know that I talked about 40 minutes on some things. Hopefully there's some takeaway. That's one of the things we always look at too. Can I take something away from everybody, and can I implement it in my program to make us better? Hopefully some of the info I shared today allow the coaches to do that.
Coach, that was phenomenal. A question though, with your preseason camp talks, who delivers those?
With our preseason camp talk, and I'll go back to that slide, our right kind of tough. I like as many female voices to speak in these class sessions as possible. As football coaches, they're surrounded by males. They hear male role models constantly. They hear from me. They hear from the assistants. Our classroom etiquette talk is taught by Sue Brooks. She's an education professor here at the University of Findlay. Our substance abuse is taught by Dr. Andrea Mata, a clinical psychologist and a professor on campus here. Our social media talk is done by Dr. Scott Grant. Our sexual assault and domestic violence is taught by Dr. Julie Yingling, the head of the health science, the head of our health center. So we're out there. One thing, I know that what it does, it allows the educators in our university to come behind the closed doors of our program and they kind of see what we do. I think so many people and so many teachers and professors kind of think that we just roll the ball out there on Fridays and Saturdays and say, hey, let's go play a game. And we do so much more for our players and our student athletes. And it's a chance for high school coaches to maybe open some doors up to some teachers that, you teach alongside within the building that kind of don't see what you do for young people. And when they get a chance to come in, and talk to your players on these subjects, they see more than just the game, because it's way more than a game. And I know every coach listening out there know that. It's more than just the Saturdays or Friday nights. It's about, educating and making each person a better person, both on and off the field, and opening doors for them to be great people in life. And it's one of those things that we've been able to bridge a gap between academics and athletics. So it's one of the things that I think has helped us from a perception perspective on campus.
Yeah, that sounds like a great program, Coach. All right, and then last question for you. You mentioned all this leadership and culture stuff, and it's phenomenal. How do you deliver that message to the kids about, hey, this is the standard at Findlay? Or, is that you driving that? Is it assistant coaches? Is it players? Like, what does that look like?
It's funny. We all drive it. When we leave the staff room, my job, and I always tell guys, and my coaches will probably, when coaches imitate me, this is one of the ones they'll say, I don't want to be on the same page. I don't want to be on the same paragraph. I don't want to be on the same sentence. I want to be on the same word. The old saying, we all want to be on the same page. I want to be more specific. So when we go into a meeting, I want every person in the organization to speak the same message. We all speak it in different ways, but I want the same message spoken. And it's really not my message, it's our message. And that's the team included, whether it's, our leadership council or our seniors, if we're going to talk on a certain aspect, we want to be on that same word. We want to be so exact in what we're saying to each other. And it's a constant. It's not a preseason meeting. It's not a follow-up, meeting in the spring. It's an everyday occurrence. So that's one of the things I think that we try to do as much as possible is get that same message about what our goals are, both on and off the field, driven home on a daily basis. And we like to do it in multiple ways, whether it's spoken affirmation, signage. We like to use as many signs and whether it's social media. We want to do our best for our players to see our message and hear our message about what we believe in here at the university on a constant.
Thank you so much, Coach. All right, so we'll end on that note. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you check out some of our other content, either on our YouTube page or on our app.